Fishing was a bit slow this morning, so I decided to come back and check my trail cameras and just take a little walk around and see what's going on. Opening of bow season is about a month away, so I figured it was a good time to check things out. These are some berries that are from a shrub that I planted way back probably 25-30 years ago. I got it in a wildlife packet through the National Wild Turkey Federation. If my memory is good, which it probably isn't, I believe it was a Russian olive, and it's supposed to be good for turkeys, songbirds, and other wildlife. They're doing very well this year. This is one of the trail cameras that I've had for a few years. It's inexpensive. I think it's something like a Wild Game or something. It does a pretty good job, and I don't lose any sleep at night with it hanging out in the woods thinking that somebody might take it. This here is my newest trail camera. I think it's, again, by that company Wild Game Innovations or something. It wasn't very expensive, but it is a step up from the original cameras, and it takes pretty decent pictures and video. Not much on the trail cameras. A small buck and a doe, but not much at all on there. Found a few tracks in some of the trails. So looks like the deer activity's slow this week, and it looks like the fishing's slow this morning. So maybe I'll take a hint from the fish and the deer, and maybe I'll slow down a little today and take a nap this afternoon, and then go back at it tomorrow morning. extra early start this morning. They were hitting real good. Between the two of us, I think we probably caught close to 10. It's dying off a little bit. We're going to take a ride over and fish the gravel pits over in Amish country. Well, we're over at the flooded gravel pits, and it's not looking real promising. We got some lightning and thunder and it's starting to rain, but we drove over here, so we're going to fish no matter what. I don't know how long we'll last, but I'd like to catch something in here. We got the whole place to ourselves, and the reason we got the place to ourselves is because we're the only people stupid enough to be out here fishing in a thunderstorm. Everybody else got enough common sense. They're home eating breakfast in a nice warm house. It's starting to get pretty nasty. I think we might pack it in before we get hit by a lightning bolt or something out here. But we'll be back. I had a friend suggest that I start including a little bit of how-tos in videos. I've been reluctant to do that because I'm by far away from being an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just an average fisherman, and I've been reluctant to do it, but I'm going to include a little bit of some of the tackle and the bait we're using when we're out fishing recently. Hopefully it could help a new fisherman or a kid, but by no means am I an expert, and a lot of this stuff is just by trial and error. As far as rod and reel tackle combinations, just about anything will work, whether it's a spinning reel or a spin cast. The only thing I would suggest is that whatever type of reel you're using, try to replace the line if you haven't done so in a long time. There's nothing worse than catching a real nice fish and then losing it because of having some old line on the reel. It's relatively inexpensive and easy to do yourself. However, a lot of tackle shops will put new line on your reel also. As far as hooks goes, I've been having good luck with these circular hooks. I would suggest that you use the appropriate size for the fish you're after. They're a little getting used to. You got to wait a couple of seconds before you set the hook, but it's much easier to release the fish unharmed with these hooks. And if you're in doubt as far as what size to get, if you check at your tackle shop or whatever, they can hook you up with the right size for the fish you're after. When fishing with the shiners, what I normally use is one of these slip floats. It's a bobber that slides, it's hollow, it slides up and down on the line. It has this little bead on here, and that stops it at, there's a little threaded piece there, up there, and wherever you set that at, and that is adjustable, the float will only go that deep. So they're very handy, they work quite well. And then a couple of little split shots just below it, and when it hits the water, what happens is the bait goes down, the bobber goes up to that stop, and whatever depth you have it set at is how deep your bait will be. It's easily adjusted, so you can adjust it depending on how shallow or how deep you want your bait to go. This is the size of the shiners we've been using. They're advertised at the bait shop as medium bass shiners. Another tip that I would give a new fisherman that's just starting out and he wants to go out fishing with some bait is to use the most lively bait you can get. Now I know that sounds simple, but the livelier the bait, the better the chances are that a fish is going to hit it. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but fresh, lively bait is very, very important. If you go to the bait shop and you're going to buy, say, a dozen minnows, buy some extras if you can afford it, because there's nothing worse than getting down to a lake or wherever and either running out of bait or the bait starts petering out. So it's relatively inexpensive, and if you can afford it, buy more than you think you'll need that day. Probably the best tip I could give a new fisherman or a kid out there fishing is to have realistic expectations of what type of fish, the size and everything else that you're going to catch where you have access to go fishing. It's real easy to get caught up in all the hype that you see on TV and these professional fishermen and everything. They're all great guys and they're catching beautiful fish. But to the average guy, and especially the average shore fisherman, probably a little unrealistic to expect that size and that quantity of fish. So just be satisfied with what you got access to and what you can catch, and enjoy yourself. And remember, this is all about having fun.